Hey everybody, it's Steve with Real Progressives, and I watched the debate last night, and I rewatched it again, and then I rewatched it again, and what I noticed, probably first and foremost, is something that I felt like I needed to talk to you all about before I get too deep into the analysis of the debate. I want to talk about something that has to do with my personal style of presenting economic information and my personal style of how I speak in my live streams and how I get this stuff across to you all. When you see somebody putting their foot on somebody's neck and their face is in a mud puddle, and you see them drowning in this mud puddle, and they're obviously going to die if you don't do something about it, and you get caught up in the idea that the person didn't ask nicely. Oh, well, you've got to say it much nicer than that, Steve, or they're not going to hear you. And I'm saying to myself, I'm watching somebody with their foot on someone's head as they're drowning in a mud puddle, and you want me to say it in a more nice fashion, in a less abrasive fashion, and one that allows you to feel warm and fuzzy. And I can't do that. I can try and dial it down for those of you who have very, very thin skin and sensibilities that don't allow you to hear truth said with, ferocity. But my problem is this: the subject matter that I take on is subject matter that bores most of you to death. It's subject matter that most people don't even want to touch because they don't understand it. So in order to engage a community of people that I unfortunately don't know on a first name basis, some of you I do. Hello Josh, hello Liz, hello Barbara, hello John, hello Gwen, Sarah. As I bring truth to you all in the best way I know how, I have to ask myself, what is going to keep the viewership up? What is going to keep you engaged? What is going to keep you reading the links that I put forward so that we don't keep repeating horrible, horrible fallacies? Now, I went to Jill Stein's webpage, I watched the debate from her page, and I watched the comments. And a lot of well-intentioned, good people, nice people that I care very much about because we share the same overall sensibilities of what we'd like to see happen, are ignorantly, and I don't say that in a mean way, so don't be upset at me. Please don't be upset that I used the word ignorant. So that they ignorantly say stuff about they don't want their tax dollars funding wars. They don't want their tax dollars doing this. And you're damn right, we need to jack those taxes up. And they're under the same impression over and over again. So what's going to happen? Again, before I even get into the debate, what's going to happen? The discussion about student loans is never going to get to be about student loans. It's always going to be about somebody not wanting their tax dollars to go up. So while you have this fight, and it feels really, really good, because I know this is what you want to fight about. You don't really care about student loans. You want to fight about raising taxes. It's more important to you than seeing success happen. You have a death grip on it. It is your number one issue, is raising taxes, soaking people in taxes. You live for it. You love it. So for me, knowing that that's ridiculous, no matter whether it comes from Jill, whether it comes from Trump, or whether it comes from the shill, I have to debunk it. It's not because I care one way or the other about taxes. Taxes maintain the value of our dollar. They don't spend, they don't pay for anything. They don't get recycled, they don't get repurposed. They're deleted from the system at the federal level. So as you listen to these debates, and as I get into the notes that I've taken, and yes, just so you all know, I actually took notes. Okay, I don't do that very often. I usually do it right up here. But I wanted to make sure I hit on some key points this time. So, getting to the debate now. Jill Stein was obviously the adult in the room, as usual. The problem I found, and I felt oily and slimy, was that there were times, knowing what I know, knowing about the leaks, knowing about what I know about economics, knowing what I know about how I feel as a progressive, I felt disgusted that I found myself sometimes cheering for Donald Trump. I felt disgusted that I watched him, and I felt more hatred, more disgust at the Democrat, who I should have easily been able to support because they should have easily had my sensibilities more so than the Republican. But the reality is that we've got to throw parties out the door when we talk about truth. Because I'm telling you right now, Jill said some things last night that were wrong as well. And her loyal followers, and I am loyal to her, I am rooting and cheering and voting for Jill Stein. Let me make that very clear. But because I care more about my country than I do about people's sensibilities, I just have to tell the truth. So all that said, let's get down to business. So they talked about how the trade deals were going to suck jobs out of the country. And we're going to, Trump said we're going to renegotiate all these bad trade deals. And if they don't want to renegotiate them, we'll just flat out get out of them. And Jill was like, you know what? He's right, but his personal life doesn't match up with what he's saying in his public life. Okay? Yeah, that's true, for sure. But that's not policy, right? That's just kind of gotcha politics. And, okay, great. But that's not policy. That's not stuff that really impacts you and I, okay? So I kind of skipped past all that. It just felt like filler noise to me. But then I heard Hillary talking about how did she say this? Basically that we have raised our debt to $20 trillion. $20 trillion. And she talked about how she was going to bring about a jobs revival that hadn't been seen since World War II. Now that sounds great, right? You want to like that. You want to give her a round of applause because that's great. We want jobs. We want America successful. But what we find is that then she comes back and she says, I can pay for my plan. Everything is a net zero. Everything balances out. She's talking about balancing the budget again. The federal budget. The budget that's monetarily sovereign. She talked about a debt that's non-existent. A debt that is wiped out by keystrokes. She talked about debt that is really treasury bonds that other countries and stuff buy, not to fund our government, but to stabilize their own currency. They all talked about this debt. Oh, it's ballooned. It's gone through the roof. And many of you guys sat there and nodded your head. And then Jill came in and she said, we can't cut taxes on these people because they've got to pay their fair share. There she fed into it as well. So you've got the balanced budget coming from Hillary Clinton. You got Donald Trump talking about cutting taxes across the board. Taxes don't fund spending, right? So why is that an issue? Again, not defending Donald Trump. He's a jackass. Just talking about the economics behind it. If taxes don't fund spending, how in the world will we be bankrupting our country by keeping more money in circulation? Think about that. What happens to taxes? They're deleted. That's right. They're not repurposed. Government spending puts money into the world. Taxation sucks it out of the world. Remember that. Just keep that in mind whenever you hear them talking about paying their fair share and blah, 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 right? So, she's right. Hillary was right in saying that the middle class, it's very important that the middle class thrive in America for the economy to thrive in America. Okay? So, why in the world, then, would she talk about a balanced budget? Now, think about this for a minute. What she's not taking into account is that we are a net importer. So that means money leaves our economy via our trade deals. So when she's talking about her balanced budget, she's actually still shrinking the pool of money in circulation, even with her new spending. A net neutral at zero still has to account for the leakages. So that money's still leaving via a trade deficit, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So ignore what she's saying. It's bullshit. It's just bullshit. The only bit of truth here is that they both would like to lower the repatriated funds that companies have stored offshore to bring it back into the country. They're not going to use that money to pay for programs. That's not how this works. That money would come back to the country and be deleted. It'd be purged from the system again. It'd just be a delete on the box. It doesn't pay for health care. It doesn't pay for climate change. It doesn't pay for anything. It is literally deleted from the system. That is how our federal financing works. Dollars go in, taxes go out. That's it. That's how they control the amount of money in circulation. They don't get funded. They don't pay for things. You do understand this now, I hope. Okay. So Jill came back and talked about tax dodging, bring it back at bargain basement. These companies are rolling in dough and they need to contribute their fair share. And it got a lot of applause. I mean, everybody was applauding. And this is a war that we don't need to fight again. Again, this is one of those diversionary things that makes you feel good, but solves no problems whatsoever. The only thing that taxation could really do is be used for behavior modification. So in other words, if they're carbon polluters, hey, tax them on their carbon, change their behavior. If they're offshoring jobs to some other country, hit them for a tax penalty for sending jobs abroad. You want to come up with whatever policies you want to do, that can be used as a penalty, but it's not funding anything. So both Hillary and Trump talked about the $20 trillion in debt. And Hillary came back and said that Donald Trump was going to bankrupt our nation with a tax cut worse than the Bush tax cuts. Another lie meant to keep you locked down in your own little world that you believe in because you write checks out to pay your electric bill, you write checks out for your car payment, and you're so used to only being able to spend what you spend, you don't know what it means to be the producer of US dollars. You can't do it. They can't do it. Only the federal government can authorize the Fed to spend that money into existence by order of Congress, who owns the purse strings. So then she started talking about how the Bush tax cuts bankrupted the nation. And then she talked about how her husband left with a $300 billion surplus. Again, in other words, he took out $300 billion from the economy, more than we spent. He shrank the economy, and guess what Bush inherited? Even though you hate Bush, guess what Bush inherited? Bush inherited a Clinton recession. That's the kind of awesomeness that the Clinton econ plans produce. In any event, if Jill came back shortly thereafter and talked about her Green New Deal and how it would produce all the jobs that we needed, and she's absolutely right. What I love about Jill's plan is that it is truly a New Deal plan, and it forces us to constantly spend money. We should always be spending money. There should not be stimulus packages. Stimulus packages are, here's my definition of a stimulus package. Hey guys, we screwed up for the last 8 years. We cut spending. Now all of a sudden we got to make up for it in one fell swoop and hope to God we can shock the economy back to life. That's what a stimulus is. We don't need stimulus plans. We need constant spending. And it needs to be based on sectoral balances. Remember how I told you about the three fields? Private sector, public sector, rest of world. So if the private sector debt's too high, we need to spend money into existence. We need to spend money. Damn it, I really truly hate live streaming. The feeds are so unpredictable. Anyway, sorry about the pixelating. But anyway, So when you look at our country, NAFTA has created a situation where we're not producing a lot of goods and services in the United States. We are now a net importer. So by bringing those jobs back, maybe it does good things, maybe it doesn't. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that if we are a net importer, that means that we need to spend a lot more money into existence from our federal government. If we're a net exporter, we maybe need to spend less money by the government. It doesn't make a bit of difference. It's neutral, it's agnostic, it doesn't matter. You just have to make the decision. If you're a net importer, you spend money into the economy. If you're a net exporter, maybe you don't. That's it. Do you understand this? It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And you have to make adjustments according to what you're doing. And this is the problem I have with people completely upset, really raging about things. They don't understand this, so they assign values to things that aren't true. And when the politicians feed on that ignorance, you repeat things that aren't true. We could be perfectly fine as a net exporting nation. We can be perfectly fine as a net importing nation, as long as we retain monetary sovereignty. It's that simple. So, Jill talked about how if we raise taxes on the wealthy, that it would allow us to pay for health care costs. Jill, no. She's feeding you guys because you believe this, but it's not true. Taxes don't fund spending. They don't. No matter how much I want them to, they don't. So I got somebody jamming for me over here, giving me a little bit of beats from the street while I do this, so forgive me for that. All right, next thing. She talked about her student loan plan, about how families that make less than $125,000 a year, would have free college, basically, tuition free at state institutions. And she had to drop the point that Bernie Sanders helped her out with this plan, which is nothing like Bernie Sanders' plan at all. I don't even want to get into what Bernie's thinking there, okay? There's nothing about her plan is good, because think about this. How many people do you know of that once they hit 18, no matter how wealthy their parents are, they get cut off? They are not their parents' money. They are just another human being. They're an American citizen. Make it citizen benefits and stop with the nonsense about, all this, hey, we gotta tear them up and we gotta raise them up and we gotta beat everybody up. Stop. You'll get more honey, you get more flies with sugar than you will sitting there trying to divide people up in all these completely irrelevant ways. Every U.S. citizen should have a right to a college education, period. Period. They should have a right to health care, period. I mean, these are basics. But they try to peddle this myth that we're broke, that we can't afford it. And so what happens? They come up with these cheesy ways of, well, if they're less than 125,000, then we'll do it. And they make it seem like they're playing on your sense of fairness while they peddle a lie. It's important. Let's see. He was talking about how Hillary was going to raise taxes on everybody. And Hillary probably will raise taxes on a lot of people, but she talked about 250,000 and above. This whole Robin Hood thing, this idea that taxes are the answer to everything, is why we never make progress, why you keep getting these incremental changes at best that push us further and further toward neoliberalism. Most of this stuff is a crock of shit. And when I realized that, I think the more troubling thing for me was looking at the comments in Jill's feed, looking at all the green people, looking at all the progressives sitting there championing the idea that the wealthy have to pay for stuff, like their taxes are somehow or another paying for this stuff. And it's like, Remember, we can solve for income inequality by raising taxes. We can change behavior by raising taxes on specific things. But we are not paying for jack shit by raising taxes. Taxes don't fund spending. And it was like over and over and over again. So at the end of the day, Donald Trump is talking about cutting taxes. I'm okay with that because taxes don't fund spending. Hillary is still trying to divide us up and leave the lower, well, if these small timers get something, then it'll be okay. We'll jack up the taxes over here. But what do you think's going to happen once you get out of the debates and you go to the House of Representatives and the Senate and you're trying to push these bills through Congress and you're talking about raising taxes? What do you think's going to happen to all of our great plans? Now, what if I went into a Republican community and I said, there's my feed freezing up on me. Sorry about that. What if I went into a Republican community and I said, what if I can give your children a free education without raising your taxes? Would you take that? Yes or no? I guarantee you that most of them would be like, well, if you're not going to raise my taxes, well, sure, I'd do it. Same with health care. So instead of fighting about raising taxes, which people just have this fetish to do, they fetishize tax increases. And they fetishize a lot of faulty logic. Why not sit there and position this in a way that allows us to build a bipartisan coalition? If taxes don't fund spending, why do you continue to stomp in place demanding that taxes fund spending? This is a huge deal. This is life-changing. And that's why when I do these streams, that's exactly why I end up getting animated and crazy about it. Because so many people hold on to that for dear life. I had people in the Jill Stein student loans video that I did, that's pinned to our page. I had people pouring through there telling me I was wrong. I love when people tell me I'm wrong. It gives me an opportunity to prove I'm right. But that's not the deal, though. They came in there sauntering in talking about debt, and I think you're wrong. We're in debt to China, and we're in debt to the... And these faulty things keep us from ever making progress. Ever making progress. And Jill had some blood on her hands last night, too. Jill peddled some bad myths there, too. But, I would say 90% of Jill was right on the money. The sensibilities, the plan, etc. were right on the money. She just needs to stop peddling the lie that taxes fund spending or pay your fair share to fund things. She needs to stop that because she actually does know this stuff. She is in touch with people that know modern monetary theory. She's in touch with people that know monetary sovereignty. This is not news to her. She just recognizes that she would be called a kook. Look how many idiots call her an anti-vaxxer. Look how many idiots talk about the things that she says when she just raises caution. If she came out and said taxes didn't fund spending in an election cycle, people would say, what the hell are you talking about? And because Jill is not an economist, she can't sit there and get down into the ruminations and the machinations of the Federal Reserve. She can just sort of talk at high levels. And all of a sudden, they would come in there and destroy her. That's why she can't say those things. But what she's offering up is a massive infusion of new spending. And the taxes that she's proposing are in no way, shape, or form a one-for-one. She is indeed proposing massive deficit spending, which is exactly what the United States needs right now and will always need as long as we are a net importer. Keys to the game here, folks. Monetarily sovereign government. Don't give me any crap about the Fed. I'm going to say it gently because I know too many people have very, very fair skin, very sensitive to anything that might seem a little bit acerbic or strident. They can't handle it, so I'm going to be very gentle. Get rid of those feels, damn it. The next thing. Because taxes don't fund spending, Debating about taxes is a waste of time. We need to pay taxes, but we need to pay them so that our dollar stays worth something. It keeps monopoly power of the dollar that allows us, instead of spending on the military, shifting that spending to the 99%. Instead of breeding killing machines, we could breed education and healthcare and green energy, like Jill's Green New Deal. So Jill was spot on. This was a huge win for Jill Stein last night on economics. But you guys need to help her and help whoever runs in the future know that they need to stop lying to us about taxes funding spending, so that we can make the progress we as a nation deserve, so that we are not fighting with Republicans about unnecessary things, that we can get down to priorities. Right now, our nation is in a death grip over the wrong ideas. We are fighting about the wrong ideas. We have got to change the narrative. We have got to change the conversation. In order to have economic justice in this country, we have got to stop peddling the false myths and the lies, or we never have the kind of justice we need. No change will happen fighting about taxes. No changes. We need to lower taxes on the 99%. I believe, you're going to love this, I believe we could eliminate corporate taxes altogether, except for behavioral modification taxes. We could raise them through the roof. We could change the way they do business through taxation. But to believe that taxes fund spending is not only moronic and incorrect, but it is literally like putting your foot on someone's face while they're face first in a mud puddle and telling them you'll worry about their health care after you've raised taxes. That's why I'm so animated about this. That's why I'm so unequivocating, and that's why I'm so determined to spend day in and day out talking about this very, very, very serious subject. It was not addressed in the debate last night, and many people will ask why not. It's because they know you can't handle the truth yet. You can't handle the idea that your taxes are not paying for things. You're not paying for bombs, and they're not paying for abortions. You're not paying for Latifah's phone, and you're not paying for Chauncey's river rights. You're not paying for any of that. Our national resources, our nation's money, our ability to spend sovereign money is our right to make priority decisions on. And we need to own that right. We need to own that. And stop talking about it being your hard-earned tax dollars at the federal level. I hope this helped you guys out. It's not as deep as I wanted to go, but I realized that we got to start with baby steps. And even if I talked in a way that you didn't understand this time, keep coming back. I'll get better. I promise. I'm going to continue to try to do things better and better and more betterer and betterer than betterer, because it's that important. I can't stop. I know the truth. I can't let it go, and I can't let you guys continue to say things that are incorrect, because it's killing our ability to make progress. Anyway, this is Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. I love you guys. I hope you keep liking economics. I hope you guys keep tuning in, and we're going to continue to try to change the world one person at a time. Have a great